Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special edition. It's fair to call it an emergency edition of the Don Lemon Show or Lemon Live, whatever you want. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. It is. What time is it in Los Angeles, LZ Granderson?
I do not know, my friend. I'm in. So
you're where?
It is. I'm gonna say it's about 6 o'clock now.
Okay, because I am out of it as well. But anyway, LZ Granderson, you and I have been talking. As you know, the president has made a decision. He is backing out of the race. He is endorsing his vice president, Kamala Harris. A turn of events that's shocking, but not at all unexpected. As a matter of fact, LZ, I was reading your column that just recently posted in the Los Angeles Times as Stuart Stevens joins us as well. Stuart Stevens is a senior advisor to the Lincoln Project. He's here with us as well. But you said you thought it would be Sunday, and you actually commended the current president for doing what he did. You say this is an act of nobility, you believe.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, most of us anyway, are familiar with some aspects of the musical Hamilton. And one of the key moments of Hamilton, of course, is teach them how to say goodbye when George Washington decides not to rerun for election. And that was kind of like the way that I sort of framed the conversation, that this isn't something that Broadway decided to do. This was actually something Joe himself said he was going to do shortly after Super Tuesday in 2020, which was to be a bridge candidate to the future, essentially teach them how to say goodbye. And then he sort of reneged on that promise that he made in 2020 and decided to run again. So I think that the fact that he's finally had a moment to take a real good look at his performance, not just in a debate, but really just in a lot of public appearances, beginning with the graduation at West Point, where he kind of fell and stumbled over a block of sandbag on stage, and really just ask himself, when he looks at not just the job he's doing, but the presentation of him doing the job in the public eye, and whether or not his presentation is giving American voters a reason to believe 4 more years was a viable concept. And after the debate, it was pretty clear to a lot of Americans that 4 more years didn't seem viable. And that, to me, was really the linchpin to all of this, is that it's not that he's doing a terrible job. It's not that the economy is worse off now. It's not that, he can't be president of the United States now. But this is the job, not for now, but for the next 4 years. And I think that's where he lost a lot of people.
LZ Granderson starts his column that just released on the LA Times website, latimes.com, says, I am sure it doesn't feel this way to President Biden now, given the fighter he is, but stepping down was the right thing for him to do. And LZ, as you have been talking about having the greatest economy or the best economy in the world, you said he made historic investments in rebuilding. This is what he wrote. He said, today, America has the strongest economy in the world, meaning Joe Biden. Joe Biden wrote that. We've made historic investments in rebuilding our nation and lowering prescription drug costs for seniors and expanding affordable health care to a record number of Americans. We provided critically needed care to 1 million veterans exposed to toxic substances, passed the first gun safety law in 30 years, appointed the first African-American woman to the Supreme Court, and passed the most significant climate legislation in the history of the world. America has never been better positioned to lead than we are today. And Stuart Stevens, the senior advisor to the Lincoln Project, what say you? Last time we had you on, which was not very long ago, right, you were very pro-Biden, and you believe that the president should not have stepped down. You thought he was the best alternative. So now with this current turn of events, what say you, sir?
Okay, I have one firm conviction here, and that is I don't think Donald Trump is going to win this election. I think Joe Biden could have defeated him. But, he really seemed to lose the support of the party, and that makes it very difficult to continue. So I think passing off to Harris, I hope there's not a contested convention. I hope the party coalesces around her, as it seems to be doing very quickly. She should win. I thought that Trump had a terrible convention. I thought Trump had a terrible debate. And he's just unable to redefine himself. And that convention speech was fascinating when you compared the prepared text to what he gave. And the prepared text is like the campaign telling him, be this guy. And he just can't be that guy. So I think probably I would expect Harris to be behind until the convention. That would be typical. There's something about being vice president that diminishes you, and something about being the nominee that enhances you. But I think come October 20th or something, she'll be ahead by a comfortable margin.
You don't sound at all excited about this, Stuart. What's
Oh
up?
no! Look, I never was part of the Democratic Party. I'm very respectful to the inner workings of the Democratic Party, and that it wasn't my party. I unfortunately helped build that monster that you saw at the Republican convention.
Yeah,
So
you got on board after Trump became president or when he started running. You were always a never Trumper because you
yeah, I
thought he is
always was.
detrimental to our country. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote a book called It Was All a Lie that really tried to analyze why I hadn't seen what the party was becoming before. And my position was and is that Trump didn't change the party so much as he revealed it. And that's a really unpleasant truth for a lot of us to come to grips with. But I don't really know any other logical conclusion. I mean, think about it. You had a guy who has been on camera hitting his wife, introducing a candidate, a Republican nominee, who a hometown jury found him liable of sexual assault. A judge called rape, who's a convicted felon, and people stood up and applauded wildly for that. What do you say about that? I mean, that's not a party that is any kind of American mainstream that I think is going to be a successful party.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is what I said, and you guys tell me if we can get a poll. I'm not sure if we can because we weren't expecting to go on today, even though LZ was very prescient. And LZ and I, as a matter of fact, we have been going back and forth all weekend. LZ and I are very good friends.
You guys should have put money in Vegas.
I know. But we don't always agree on everything, and that's the beauty of our relationship. And I mean, on principle, we agree on most everything. But actually, the way that it should happen, sometimes we have disagreements about. But here's what I say, LZ, and maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse. But I said, and I don't know if you saw my tweet. I said, if Joe Biden really wants to secure his legacy and be unique and make history. And listen, I don't know how practical this is. I'm not a political person. He would step down. Kamala Harris would become president. That way, she would get to run the country, and people could see that she is that she can be a successful president. But more than anything, she gets a bully pulpit, right? He steps out of the spotlight. She gets a bully pulpit. She becomes not only the first woman president of the United States, but then she becomes the first Black woman president of the United States. That secures his legacy. That also supercharges this election and gives momentum and a whole lot of attention and steam to the Democrats. Wrong?
I think you're right, and I think finally, President Biden took a deep, long look the way that you did and made a similar assessment. And again, this isn't an indictment on the performance of his administration, and I think perhaps that's part of the reason why it was so difficult for him to make this decision, because typically when someone has that much power, they don't relinquish it willingly. Particularly in politics, it's usually because of scandal or because the math says that you can't win. And so they bow out. Maybe it's gerrymandering, maybe it's a lack of funding, et cetera, but you bow out because you assume you can't win. Very rarely do you see a candidate with a possibility to win with a good track record bow out. And so it's understandable why it's taken him so long to get to this place. But the one thing he could not fight was the perception of his age and his health. So even if he's able to prove on paper every single thing that we've been talking about in terms of him fulfilling multiple campaign promises, the reality is he was no longer in a position in terms of his health and communication style to be able to effectively communicate, one, how good he has been as a president, two, why the things that fell short, and then three, and most importantly, what are his plans for the next 4 years? And when you get to door number three in the next 4 years, and you look at his gait and how his gait has declined, I don't really care about mixing up names. Obviously, former President Trump does the same thing. Hell, I do the same thing. Mixing up names is not a reason to not be president, but it's his ability to communicate effectively and eviscerate where he needs to and deflect where he needs to that he was lacking. That's what was exposed on the debate stage. And I don't think it's going to be any different going forward for him over the next few months. And so I think that was one of the big reasons why. It's not that he can't be president. It's just that I don't think he can no longer be president and be a campaigner to beat Donald Trump. That was the issue.
Well, let me read what you said, because you said that in your column. And again, I would encourage you to read LZ's column in the LA Times. And in that column, I'm quoting LZ here. He says, not because the president isn't good at his job, but because the concerns raised about Biden's age back in 2020 have come to pass. He is a good man. He is also dangerously close to looking like Michael Jordan with the Washington Wizards. Politics, like the NBA, is for the young. Washington today is less the West Wing and more Game of Thrones. And Democrats are no longer in need of an elder statesman to remind of the promise of America. The party needs a warrior who can be relentless on the campaign trail and effectively communicate the party's message about the future. Biden is no longer able to do either, and that's okay. And then you go in and you talk about why you think why he has done a good job as president, why he's done a good job at being a statesman, at being an elected leader for the United States for decades. And you said he was in 1972 when he was first elected to the Senate. LZ says, I was in diapers. Since then, he has dedicated his life to serving this country, and those years of service are very much appreciated. First of all, you made me feel very old because I was just out of diapers, so that reminded me that I am older than you. But I'm just sort of backing up the point that you just made, what you just said. But Stuart, I want to know about the mechanics of this. Am I wrong? Do you think it's too much to ask for Joe Biden to step down as president, and therefore Kamala Harris would become president? Is it that easy? Yeah, go ahead.
I just don't think it's in the realm of what he's considering to do. It was like the Aaron Sorkin column saying the Democrats should nominate Mitt Romney.
Yeah, I saw that. What was that about? I take back everything I've ever said.
Talk about West Wing.
I know. I mean, I think the Democrats would nominate Rob Gronkowski before they would nominate Mitt Romney. Which might be great. Think about the rallies. They start at midnight. They go all night. It would be so cool. I don't think that's going to happen, but I will say I worked in the Bush campaign in 2000. And I always thought that had Clinton stepped down and Gore became president, he would have been reelected easily. Right. So it kind of goes, I don't think in a political sense, LZ's wrong about that, but at all. The last time a party held on to the White House without benefit of incumbency was 1988. But I think in this situation, presidential campaigns are $2 billion startups that are open for business a few weeks. And just think about trying to start that August 20th. You hire your first staffer. I mean, it's not that it's impossible, but it's just such a monumentally difficult dive into a tiny little pool that put all the odds on your side. I think the best thing that could happen now for the country, because I think by far the best thing to do is make sure Donald Trump doesn't get anywhere near the presidency, is that the Biden campaign becomes the Harris campaign. They have 1,200 staffers, they say, hundreds of offices. She's the only one who can keep the money that they've raised legally. So I think it's just kind of a no-brainer that's what has to happen here. I'm really interested, and you guys would know far more about this than I. Is President Obama going to come in and endorse Harris?
Well, I would love to talk about that with you guys, because here's what I think is happening. I think President Obama would like to, but I think it's so early on. I think he's holding his powder. I think he's keeping his powder dry at the moment. He did call in his statement, he said that President Biden was a patriot and a hero. I'm paraphrasing the hero part, but he did say patriot. And he commended the president for doing what he did tonight. But he stopped short of endorsing Kamala Harris. And I think that he is probably waiting to see what unfolds. But, you know, everyone I was with here that I was having dinner with when this all broke said, oh, I think maybe he's waiting because we're holding out hope for Michelle Obama. And I'm like, that is never, ever going to happen. But I don't know. I think at some point he will step forward, but I don't know. What say you, LZ?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, remember, he didn't endorse President Biden right out the gate either. He kind of stayed back in the cut, and even when he left office, he actually sort of reportedly instructed Biden not to run, and instead endorsed Secretary Clinton. So this is not unusual at all. Speaking of Secretary Clinton, her and former President Bill Clinton both endorsed Vice President Harris out the gate, to give you an idea of the level of coordination that was happening behind the scenes before Biden posted his letter. They did reach out to people, understanding that while Obama may not necessarily endorse her, just making sure that his platform and his gravitas is in on this conversation. Recognizing what President Biden is doing is not cowardly. What he's doing is not running from Trump. It's actually quite patriotic. To step aside and to read the tea leaves, if you will, and decide that instead of trying to stay in for selfish reasons, that if his party believes the best chances to stopping Trump is for him to step aside, not a lot of people would have done that. And I think it was important that Obama, and it's important that all of us in the media, don't conflate those two storylines. President Biden has served this country for more than 4 decades, and he deserves his own moment to have his career highlighted in this fashion during this time. I recognize that we want to immediately start talking about 2024, but I think we can do both without conflating both. President Biden, Vice President Biden, Senator Biden, has worked really hard to help the American people, and he deserves his own moment. And when it's time to endorse Senator Harris, Vice President Harris, Attorney General Harris, I mean, she has a lot of titles. She has been in the public service herself for a long time. That time will come, and I think it would have come in the right moment during the convention. I would like, I don't know how you guys feel, Stuart and Don. My preference would be to secure not just the nomination for herself and the rallying of the delegates behind her, but that she goes ahead and selects a vice president as well, so that when they get to Chicago, it's not a who she's going to pick. It's not what are they going to do. It's say this is what it is, and we're going to celebrate this ticket and move forward.
Yeah. Listen, Stuart, before you I'm going to let you weigh in, but I just want to say, I just want to read my fellow Americans. This is what President Biden says. Over the past 3.5 years, we have made great progress as a nation. America has the strongest economy in the world. We have historic investments in rebuilding our nation and lowering prescription drug costs, and some of which I read earlier where you talked about what happened, nominating the first woman in the Supreme Court. I know, and then he goes on to say, I know none of this could have been done without you, the American people. Together, we overcame a once in a century pandemic and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We have protected and preserved our democracy, and we have revitalized and strengthened our alliances around the world. Then he goes on to say, I believe today what I've always had, that there is nothing America can't do when we do it together. I'm sorry, I'm having to enlarge this. We just have to remember we are the United States of America, Joe Biden. It was interesting. In that statement, though, he did not endorse Vice President Kamala Harris, but then came back and did it later. I think it's a very interesting point that you bring up, Stuart, whether the, Obamas, especially since people are looking to Michelle Obama to possibly, get on the ticket, have not endorsed. But again, I go back to my original question. Do you think I'm crazy that he should step down? And also, do you think it says something that the Obamas, what are you saying?
I just think it's really, I don't think it's crazy. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think he's considering. He's dealing with the Gaza deal, which I think is looming on the horizon, very large here. It's hard enough not to run for re-election, but to step down, I don't think that's in the world of possibility. Look, my point about this is you have the Congressional Black Caucus that has endorsed her, the Clintons, and there's just sort of certain mechanics.
Elizabeth Warren, etc.
I hadn't seen that, but that's interesting. I saw that Shapiro did, Pennsylvania. But,
Yeah.
just not to get too in the weeds, but who's going to run the convention? Who's going to who's going to design these convention nights? And that's always been the nominee. And if you don't have a nominee, a de facto nominee, who is going to design that?
Oh, it's going to
And
be, don't you? That's going to be the vice president. Don't you think that all those resources and all
that,
those people are going to
well,
click over to?
that would be my point. And
Yeah.
if that's to me, God forbid that should happen, but if President Obama asked me, I would say sooner is very important, because
Right.
uncertainty in politics is sort of the devil's handmaiden. And there's been a period of uncertainty here. You need, to me, just lock this thing up. I agree completely. She should pick a vice president before. By Wednesday, it's just they're gonna have to redo this convention. I mean, man, this is big, big stuff, and they really need to get about it. I personally have always thought the Biden campaign was a very high functioning campaign. It's very difficult to beat an incumbent president. They did in 2020. I thought they reinvented the whole convention model when they did the largely remote convention, and they had good nights, which is hard to do. And they seem to have patience, which I think is one of the great understated qualities of politics. So I would just hope that the whole party just forms around her and gets about making history.
Well, I think it would be historic. I think you're right about that, but I also think they're probably still tinkering, and not just around the edges, but with a lot of the inner workings and a big part of the convention. I think they probably held some of what their efforts and what they wanted to do, or what they want to do. They're waiting for after the Republican convention to see how they would have to react. But I do think that Vice President Kamala Harris will get those resources. And you bring up a very good point. Go on. Sorry.
No, she really has to. What's the stage? All this stuff. Can I just say something here? It's just rap that Vice President Harris isn't a very good politician, which just confounds me. So she beat an incumbent DA, which is never an easy thing to do. She beat the Attorney General candidate, who was the golden boy of Republican politics in California, not named Schwarzenegger, very popular Republican DA in LA County, heavily Democratic. She beat him. She got elected to the Senate, and she's Vice President of the United States. So if she was a good politician, how far would she have gone? I mean, I just don't get this. More people have voted for her than any woman in the history of America. So it seems to be like one of these silly things, kind of like George Bush, is a wimp, 18 years old, and he's getting shot out of the sky as a fighter bomber pilot. These odd things happen, but I think that just doesn't make sense to me at all.
Let me ask you, LG. Go on.
I was going to say, Stuart, it's my understanding that part of the rhetoric that you're hearing about her abilities to be a campaigner comes from two areas. First, her own initial campaign for president did not last very long. Of course, we didn't do a lot of reporting as to why. Some of it was organizational issues, but a lot of it had to do with they just simply ran out of money. And one of the reasons why they ran out of money, because people in this country have a hard time believing that a black woman could be president of the United States. And so they didn't put their money behind her in that way. Well, now things are different. She's been running for, many elections. She's been doing the job of vice president for a number of years. And so I think the way that she'll be categorized in a lot of donors' eyes will be different than when she first came out of the gate with, very little experience in the Senate and obviously no experience, in the White House on an administrative level. But I also think that we can't overlook the fact that, within the Democratic Party, there's still a lot of, white liberal racism that impacts, who can be viewed or seen as leaders of the party. And I know that may sound odd given the rhetoric of the party and the fact that, Vice President Kamala Harris is there, Barack Obama was there, obviously. So it doesn't seem as if it's congruent. But it's been my experience through my reporting that, a lot of people, not necessarily elected officials, but a lot of donors and a lot of people who view themselves as progressives are also still somewhat hesitant to want to see a person of color, particularly a woman of color, in that leadership position, nor do they think the country's ready for it. And so, I think the big mission for Democrats isn't trying to figure out how they're going to organize the party at the convention. the big emphasis that Democrats have to work on is getting to those members with the purse strings to let them know this is going to be okay. And I know, again, that sounds crazy, but they did the exact same thing when President Obama first announced his candidacy. There were a lot of queer donors who were questioning whether or not the country was ready to elect a gay president, which is why Pete Buttigieg was a little bit slow coming out of the gate financially until more people got a chance to hear him speak and started to believe. But the hesitation was based on identity politics. And I think, Vice President Harris is also kind of handcuffed a little bit by people preconceived notions, not about her capabilities, about what the country is ready to accept. And so when you talk about rallying around her, Don and Stuart, this isn't just simply about endorsing her. It's about confronting those people in those circles, in those fundraisers and donor meetings who start whispering doubts about her abilities to win, and making sure that they remind them that the alternative is still Donald Trump. That the alternative doesn't change because Joe Biden has left the ticket. The alternative is still Donald Trump.
If I can let people in on our, just be a bit transparent here, but, because you say that, but that is a real thing. And the concern that I have is that, I said to you, it doesn't matter. Of course, it would be historic. It would be great if it's Vice President Kamala Harris. But I think what most people want more than anything, whether it's a black woman or, a white Jewish man, whatever it is, whether it's, Shapiro and Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, who's Jewish, whatever, they just want someone who can win. They want someone who can beat Donald Trump. And all of those factors that you're talking about, or can actually be a hindrance, and they can actually be, sort of an anvil around the neck of the candidate, whether we like it or not. So will white men vote for Kamala Harris? Will independents vote for a woman? Will they vote for a black person if she puts someone else black on the ticket, or another woman on the ticket, or a Jewish man on the ticket? Is that an asset or is that a liability? Those things are all real. And I think Democrats are in a moment right now where they have to decide, do they want to pick a vice president Vice President Kamala Harris because they actually believe she can win? Or do they want to do it because they think, well, she is next in line, and if you skip over her, then, I can't do it. It's got to be a protest vote because, you can't skip over the black woman. I don't know if that is, in this moment, I'm not sure how much that's in play. I think you just have to go with the person who wins, whether it's a white man, a black woman, a green person, or whoever it is.
Riddle me this, because you guys know so much more about this than I do. If you have to work on the assumption, right, that Joe Biden looked at all these potential candidates and decided that the person he picked as Vice President Harris was the most qualified to be president.
She is. I believe she is.
That he picked her because she was the most that would help politically. I mean, that's certainly a factor. So if you have this person as vice president in this moment, and she didn't become the presidential nominee, how would it not shatter the Democratic Party, where African Americans are such a fundamental?
That's LZ's point.
Party. How would it not shatter it for a generation? That you're going to. What she thought that she got uppity and she wanted to be president? I mean,
that's LZ's point. LZ?
Yeah.
I mean, Stuart's hitting it right on the head. Again, there's so much focus on November, and, maybe I'm a little bit foolish in this spectrum, but I think one of the reasons why President Biden stepped down was because this is more than just about beating Trump in November. Yep. This is about setting the party on the right course for the future in the next 4 years. And so, if you think the formula to securing the White House is to remove Kamala Harris, and you can find the math to do that, God bless you. But what does the math tell you at the midterm what's going to happen when you go back to the same voters who voted for a Biden-Harris ticket in the primary of 2024, and now it's 2026, and you're expecting people to show up in the midterms enthusiastic when you just did his okey doke when it comes to the person that they voted for in the primary, and not just once, by the way. She went through the primary more than twice, or more than once. She went through the primary twice, and she went through the general election already, and she's received millions and millions of votes as part of that ticket. And so I don't understand how a conversation about the black women being the backbone of the Democratic Party jives with this notion that we've got to remove the black woman from the ticket to win for Democrats. The two things make no sense.
It seems like madness to me. Look, I mean, these things. Look, there were so many people. I'm sure, I can't remember. I'm sure I was one that thought, an African American with the middle name Hussein's not going to be elected president of the United States of America. Well, turns out I was wrong. And I think these things are always true until they're not true.
Right.
And personally, I love the idea of an all-female ticket, picking Governor Whitmer. I think that would be such a contrast. Donald Trump hates women, make him run against two. And just that kind of like, this is a new America. This is it. Just, kind of like Clinton doubling down, young Southerners.
But Stuart, think about it. You got, okay, you'd have two women. I think I think it would be a great ticket, but is America ready for two women? If you had Josh Shapiro and Kamala Harris, is America ready for a black woman and Jewish man?
Look, they did it in Georgia. They did it in Georgia.
If you had Pete Buttigieg, are they ready for a black woman and a gay man?
My answer to this has now become, in a world in which Donald Trump was president, anything is possible. I mean, it's like, I don't know these rules anymore, But I go, one of the things.
My other half says I think they should. This is an opportunity for them to do something out of the box, to do something that would get people's attention, to do something that would challenge people.
At the top of the ticket that is already out of the box. So
even more than that. Yes, we get that, but even more so.
I think what Democrats need to focus in on is less about making history and more about the Electoral College now. Vice President Harris is the history that is to be made. Now it's about 100%. Securing the Electoral College, which is why I've been for a number of months now talking about Senator Mark Kelly, because when you look at the dynamics, not just of his qualifications for office, but just what he brings to the ticket in terms of the Electoral College. You're not just bringing Arizona, which will be safeguarded because the governor of Arizona is a Democrat who can replace him with another Democrat in the Senate, preferably a Latino, because that's woeful in terms of representation in Congress in general, but certainly in the Senate. But also it allows them to have a different sort of conversation about the military. Mark Kelly's parents are police officers. He's an astronaut, so they can talk about science more intelligently. Obviously we know the tragedy with his wife and his ability to talk about gun rights. But what I really like about him most is the fact that he wasn't unwilling to go after the Biden administration for some of the decisions that they made about the border, which, as we know, is a significant part of Trump's campaign. And it's a big part of the RNC's platform. Mark Kelly is on the record going after Biden on the border, and he's been very strong about talking about the need for not just immigration reform, but securing the border. So again, he gives us sort of the thing that Pence gave Trump, the thing that Biden gave Obama, which is when you do have this new thing outside of the box to give voters a little sense of normalcy. And I think Senator Kelly is in position to not only do that for this ticket, but again, solidify the Electoral College going forward because he's from Arizona, which is a state that Biden won, but may be in danger of losing if he's not able to get his message across in that state. And I'm not sure how many of the states that he won in 2020 that a Vice President Harris can afford to lose in 2024.
Yeah. You just made the point for me when I just said about the having a Pete Buttigieg and whatever, or a Gretchen Whitmer or whatever, and what America is ready for, and actually what makes sense. And here's what people don't understand when I'm talking to you guys about this. I'm talking about reality. We're in rooms where people who are just sort of tuning in or whatever aren't in every day. And I hear what people say about all of the candidates, right? And I think most people, whether you like Kamala Harris or not, whether you like whomever you want to be president, let's just say it is Mark Kelly or whatever it is, there's a reality around what those candidates mean to people and their chances of becoming the president of the United States. And so, yes, I would love to see Kamala Harris as president of the United States. But I also know that racism is strong in this country. I also know that misogyny is strong in this country. I also know that sexism is strong in this country. And I think considering what is happening, what we're up against, when you're up against a woman's right to choose, female reproductive rights, the Supreme Court, democracy in itself, Democrats at this point in time had better be at any, at more than any other point in time in history, they had better make sure they pick the right person. That right person may very well be Kamala Harris, and I can't tell you if she is or not, but I would love to see her as president. Jolene Covington, and just so you know, I'm quite honest with everyone here. Jolene Covington says, Don, I've noticed that you seem to talk out of both sides of your mouth. You weren't like that on CNN, and that's why I loved watching you stay to what you believe instead of going back and forth. I'm not going back and forth. I'm telling you what I believe in. I believe that I want the person who can win if they have green hair, if they're bald,
Right.
if they're black, if they're white, if they're Jewish, if they're Muslim. I don't care who it is. I want the person who can beat Donald Trump. And that way we have a democracy. So if Kamala Harris is not the right person at this time, I'm not saying she's not, but if she isn't, that we have a democracy so that she may be able to be the next time. If we are not able to elect a Jewish president at this time, that we have a democracy intact, that we can do it the next time. That's all I'm saying. So I am team Kamala Harris, but I also know that I'm in the room with a lot of white men who don't like her. I'm in the room with a lot of black people who say they think that they're over indexing the whole idea and rhetoric that if Kamala Harris is not on the ticket, that black people will not vote for the Democrats. They don't believe that. They have concerns about her as well. I'm talking reality. I'm not talking about sitting around going, hey, man, this person has to be it. If it's not her, I'm going to protest vote. I'm not throwing my vote away on a protest vote. If Kamala Harris is on the ticket, I'm voting for Kamala Harris. If Joe Biden is on the ticket, I'm voting for Joe Biden. If Josh Shapiro is on the ticket, I'm voting for Josh Shapiro, because the alternative is worse than any of those people. That's all I'm saying. Go ahead, LZ.
No, I mean, what you're saying makes all the sense in the world. I just know that if you continually credit Black women for being the backbone of the party, and you've yet to be able to get a Black woman to be governor, that you've never had a Black woman be Speaker of the House, either minority or the House Speaker, if you've never actually have been able to have Black women do something besides help white people get elected, what exactly do you mean by being the backbone? So here's
Right.
an opportunity where you have a qualified person who's been serving in this role. And oh, by the way, the role was designed for this moment. The role was designed for if the president cannot fulfill his or her duties. That's what the role was for. And that's what people voted for. Not once, not twice, but 3 times already. So I'm sitting here and I'm just going, I understand that there's this romanticism in terms of, these handsome white men sprinkled around the country, whether it's Gavin Newsom or Bashir or Shapiro, whoever it is, that seems to have a lot of people fascination about what could be. I'm more interested in a person who had the guts to run the first time. And even though she didn't make it across the finish line, she had the guts to run the first
do
time.
it.
She didn't
Right.
do shadow campaign. She didn't, debate people on the side, pretending as if they weren't interested in the presidency and hoping that the guy fall out so they can just kind of slide in without going through the fire. She went through the fire. She got a little burn. She survived. She's battle tested. That's what you want on stage. You want a battle tested campaigner, an accomplished politician. And oh, by the way, it doesn't hurt that you have a chance to make history. But it starts with those first 2 things first. And that's what she has. That's what she's earned. And so I don't think it'll be a protest vote if people decide to sit home. I think it'll be a statement vote. Like, listen, Democrats, if you want us to fight, against Donald Trump because he's a threat to democracy, then what exactly are you saying about Black people if you're going to skip over someone who's been sitting here for this job, but you want us to go out in the fields and keep working to get votes for people? Like, those 2 things no longer are flying in this party as far as my reporting is telling me. And I'm just telling you right now that if there's any conversation that's remaining about quote unquote skipping over the vice president to have an open convention so that a white man who did not run in any of the primaries can be slid in because of some West Wing fantasy that donors have, they need to let it go.
It's crazy. Yeah. You can't.
Stuart,
Yeah.
here's the thing. Stuart, I want you to get what you're going to say in, but just to back up the point that I made. Okay. I want you to listen to this, right? Exactly what I said about certain demographics of people who are concerned about Kamala Harris, whatever. This is CBS reporting, okay? I mean, Kamala Harris has just, or the vice president has just been endorsed by the current president and others in her party. And here is what a member of the party, I'm not sure if he is now, if he's out, but listen to this, what CBS News is reporting about Joe Manchin. Watch.
Clear tonight that she has the nomination. Who else may jump in?
We're looking at a Democratic Party that's convulsing tonight. Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, who just registered as an independent, a longtime centrist Democrat. CBS News has now learned he is considering re-registering as a member of the Democratic Party to consider standing for the Democratic presidential nomination, in effect challenging Vice President Harris for that nomination. He has not made a final decision based on our conversations with people close to him, but he is considering it tonight. He's talking to donors. He's talking to party officials. His consideration underscores how some Democrats are nervous about Vice President Harris's ability to beat former President Donald Trump, who I just spoke with about an hour or two ago. He told CBS News that he's prepared to have a political onslaught against Vice President Harris or whomever emerges as the nominee. I asked him, are you ready to debate Vice President Harris? He says, not at all, because I'm not even sure I'm going to be running against her. Let's see what happens.
And Nora, just to give you a sense of how fast moving this is, Senator Joe Manchin was on Face the Nation at 10:30 this morning and said, it's time for a new generation. Forget about me. Between 10:30 a.m. this morning and right now, there is a reconsideration.
That's like a month ago in politics, Margaret.
That's right.
Okay, I said what I said. That's all I'll say, and I'm not changing it. You get my point? Do you get
are
my point?
Are we really using Senator Joe Manchin as some sort of barometer about what the Democrats should do?
I'm just saying. I'm
Seriously.
just saying.
I was
Stuart.
laughing through the whole report.
Look, I go back to after Access Hollywood tape, how many Republicans wanted to replace Trump? How many talked about how they weren't going to vote for him? And what happened? He got 92% of Republicans.
But that's Republicans, Stuart. Republicans fall in line. Democrats wet the bed.
I agree.
Yeah.
Barack Obama only got 89% of Democrats. It kind of reinforces your point. But, look, I think races can be about a lot of things. The way to win campaigns is to make it be about the matchup you want it to be. And I think that this is now set up to be a referendum on Donald Trump. I think it's always been that. I think Joe Biden could have made that. I think Harris can make that. And you really have to, like in the Lincoln Project, what we found that works tremendously effective, probably more than anything else, is to ask people, is this who you are? Mm-hmm. Show them a Marjorie Taylor Greene. Show them the guy in the Camp Auschwitz sweatshirt. Show them Trump up there, being angry and crazy. And goes like, is this who you are? Because if you vote for this, this is who you become. And this is not what people want to be. And it's, I think the Republican Party has really become a party of the past. One of my favorite clients and old friends is Haley Barber from Mississippi. And he had this saying that was both kind of funny and true. Be for the future. It's going to happen anyway. And the Republican Party has decided it's for the past. So that's why you keep losing these culture wars. They get in a fight with Nike over Colin Kaepernick. What happens? Nike makes $9 billion. DeSantis gets in a fight with Disney. How do you get in a fight with the happiness company? It's at one point, you remember they were in this fight with NASCAR because NASCAR banned the Confederate flag. So you're in a culture war with NASCAR as a Republican and you're losing. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just not where the country is. And yes, there's obvious challenges electing a woman. I think there's tremendous undercurrent that we didn't see in polling that happened for Clinton. And
we're not electing a woman. You mean having a woman run? I don't think there's a challenge in electing a woman. I think that would be. Oh, you mean getting a woman elected? I understand.
Getting a woman elected. I mean, having someone. But there's a certain excitement to it, and there's a challenge to it, and I think there's a chance for people to embrace what aspirationally they would like America to be, and I think that's very powerful.
I don't think there's anyone out there, honestly, realistically. I don't care if you were a MAGA, ultra Trumper or not. I think they build this stuff up in their head, but they know. I mean, look, Kamala Harris is infinitely more qualified to be president of the United States than Donald Trump ever is, was, or will be. right? I mean, they know it, but they just want someone who speaks for them, who speaks for their fear of where you say aspirationally, Stuart, where aspirationally they would not like this country to go. So I guess, I'm sort of making the point that you are. But here's the thing that I wonder, because everyone says, oh my God, it's over. Not everyone, a lot of people, it's over. The Democrats are screwed. I don't believe that. I think this actually energizes the Democrats. I think this actually gives the Democrats a very good chance of winning with a Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket. I actually do believe that. I actually think that they'll have more attention during, their convention, right? There'll be more excitement around it. This will take the emphasis and the attention off of Donald Trump, which he hates. And so he's going to do everything. He's going to go nuts to try to get his narrative back and to put him back at the top of everybody's news feed. This is Joe Scarborough earlier this evening. And I have to say, I agree with Joe Scarborough. I think that Donald Trump is scared out of his wits of a Kamala Harris, on the presidential ticket. Watch this.
Even this weekend, and the fact that he came out and endorsed her, and I'm sure that she and her team are fine with that as well. It means that the Democrats can move forward together. And I will say, the most telling thing about how positive this may be for the Democratic Party is the Republican response. Earlier this morning, Newt Gingrich was going on Twitter talking about how this is a violation of democracy. It's shocking and stunning that they're delegitimizing the votes of 14,500,000 Democrats. You then, of course, have Mike Johnson going around saying that he's going to do everything he can to try to nullify this, despite the fact Democrats even had their convention yet. So he's standing on no ground at all. I've also had a good bit of reporting deep inside the Trump camp that this is the one thing that he feared. Donald Trump has always considered himself to be the ultimate disruptor. And for the first time, not just in his political life, but the first time in his media life, in his professional life, the disruption is on the other side. And Donald Trump is not disrupting, and people are not having to respond to the shocking turn of events from him for once. Now Trump and his campaign team are going to have to respond to this shocking turn of events, and they're not happy about it at all. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of Trump's acolytes in politics and the media coming out and bitterly complaining about this.
I was going to liken it to what happened with COVID disrupting his presidency, but he was still in control of the message then. He was still at the podium. He was still at the White House.
So listen, that was on MSNBC earlier. So Sheila D in the comments, one of the part of the LemoNation, says MAGA is scared. You guys want to comment on that? I do believe they are scared, and I actually think that
John, I think
they have more of a chance now than with Joe Biden at the top of the ticket. Go ahead, Stuart.
I think America's just not ready for a president who's going to be 83 when he leaves office. So, we can't allow that to happen.
I feel that this notion that America's too racist and misogynist to vote for a black woman president. Well, that voice, that racist, misogynist vote, Donald has those. So you're going for the votes that aren't racist and misogynist. So instead of trying to acquiesce to people who are full of schisms and prejudice, why don't you try to appease to the people who aren't with the policies that have been successful with the administration, as well as her vision for the future, which I'm going to assume includes continuing with the work that her and President Biden have been doing, which includes the infrastructure bill that President Trump had talked about but never came to pass, which it's a whole host of policies that they can turn to and point to. And I'm not just talking about student loan debt forgiveness. There are a lot of things within the weeds that she has the ability to talk about that Trump certainly couldn't. And unfortunately, President Biden wasn't able to communicate as well. But she can do that, and she can talk reasonably to moderates, to Republicans who are looking to vote for someone other than Trump. And I honestly firmly believe that if she chooses to elect someone who is a moderate who is male and who is white. Whatever little uneasiness some of the voters may feel on the Democratic side about a female president will be somewhat subsided, because that will give them something to sort of kind of hang their hat on, going, well, he's there as well. And while I don't necessarily like sort of, acknowledging that aspect of either party, that is a reality. It does need to be addressed. And I think she can't handle it with the selection, but she doesn't need to just solely focus on her not being Trump to get people to vote for her. This administration has done a lot of things to be proud of, from the number of judges that have been appointed during this term, in addition to the infrastructure bill, in addition to how it's handled the emergencies post-COVID. One of the reasons why we were looking for toilet paper 4 years ago today, we're looking for hand sanitizers 4 years ago today, is because the president in charge did not prepare us months before. I don't think that we'll be looking at the same sort of governing with Vice President Harris, and she needs to be able to talk about that aspect of her abilities to do this job as well. And I have all the confidence that she'll be able to do that. Why? Not because she's a woman, not because she's black, but because she's been doing the job. We need to emphasize that. She is not someone that was handpicked out of a crowd. She's the Vice President of the United States. That's legit. That's a real thing.
Former Republican presidential hopeful and U.S. Senator Mitt Romney of Utah issued the following statement. It says, which is different from what we're hearing from Republicans today. I am a classic Republican, and he is a classic Democrat. Obviously, President Biden and I usually didn't see eye to eye. I opposed many of his initiatives, but we did find common ground on infrastructure, Ukraine, the Electoral Count Act, adding religious liberty protections to the marriage bill, gun safety measures, and chip manufacturing. Others will judge his presidency. However, having worked with him these past few years, I respect President Biden. His decision to withdraw from the race was right and is in the best interest of the country. Ann and I send warm personal wishes to the president and first lady. And again, that is Mitt Romney. Listen, there's not a lot of class, honestly, coming out of the Republican Party today, but from Mitt Romney, we're certainly witnessing an act of a classic act, I should say. And it's the way that people should treat each other, especially in politics these days.
Yeah, I've been looking at England when they've had this, huge sort of political earthquake, and this sort of graciousness and decency and respect for both sides that they've evidenced is just such a contrast with where we've been in our politics.
One of the followers, here it is. Thank you. Her name is Happy. And Happy is supporting independent media. Thank you, Happy. I appreciate it. You can look in the comments to see what she sent to us. But she says, how do you feel about Liz Cheney as a VP pick? Will that speak unity? Stuart, I'll let you start, and then LZ, you can finish.
No, no, you're not. Listen, I know Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney's a friend of mine. I wrote a book about the Bush 2000 campaign and predicted that Liz Cheney would run for president because she was that impressive. I worked with her very closely in debate prep for her dad. But she is a conservative. So the idea that, this is another Aaron Sorkin fantasy. You can't get Mitt Romney, get Liz Cheney. I mean, no. That's not going to happen. I think that Liz Cheney will endorse the Democratic ticket. I think she'll campaign for it. I think that all of these people, like Chris Christie, you have to campaign for the Democratic ticket if you believe what you said about Donald Trump. If Donald Trump's an existential threat to democracy, you have to vote and encourage people to do that. I would say the same to Senator Romney, though he probably won't ask me. But it's to me, that's different than you're going to put. It's just.
That's the way the country started. Like the person who finished second for the presidency was the automatic VP, and oftentimes that was your bitter rival. As you can imagine, that may not have had a very productive administration if you're wondering if your VP is out to get you and take over the job. So no, I agree with you. It's silly.
I thought about this, LZ, when Trump picked J.D. Vance, because I tell you, if there's anybody who'll go to the 25th Amendment as soon as he can, it's J.D. Vance.
Absolutely.
And that guy is the most untrustworthy snake imaginable. And talk about Secret Service challenges. It's going to come between keeping those.
So why are the Democrats and I don't know and it seems that they are really, really upset and very angry about losing Joe Biden as their opponent. Let's see. So someone in the Democratic Party says Joe just dropped out. The Democratic elite, corporate media, and billionaire donors successfully pressured the candidate chosen by Democratic primary voters to drop out because he is down in the polls and losing. Democrats destroying democracy in pursuit of power. That's what a Republican is saying. Elon Musk then responds saying, exactly. They're so mad. Why are they so mad about losing Joe Biden?
Why are you quoting somebody from apartheid South Africa being mad about Kamala Harris? I mean,
with the vice president,
by
another South African, Peter Thiel. It was going to be the all. I don't remember the part of the Constitution where it says that like South African oligarchs get to pick our leader. I missed that clause.
I love you guys. By the way, Gavin Newsom just endorsed Kamala Harris, by the way.
Good.
And he can't be vice president because he can't have two from the same state.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he could always change it. Well, he can't change his residency, as a matter of fact. So there you go.
He can't unless he resigns.
Unless he resigns. Okay. Can we talk about the hopefuls?
Dick Cheney did.
Say again, LZ?
I said unless he moves to Wyoming the way that Dick Cheney did. He was in Texas when W picked him, as you know, Stuart.
Yep.
And he went to Wyoming for some reason.
There's also reporting Obama endorses open nominating process while Clinton's endorse Harris. So
has he done that? Has that happened? Has Obama done that?
That is according to the reporting. Unless they are, that's what they're garnering or assuming from his statement. Yeah, his non-endorsement.
I didn't think he was endorsing an open convention. I think he was congratulating Joe. And because he didn't take that same time to automatically endorse Harris, that assumption was made.
So let's talk about the VP hopefuls.
I don't see how it works that you're going to be the first black president. You're not going to support the first black female. I don't know, guys. Like, how does that, how do you sustain that? I mean, it's one thing for 24 hours, but,
Okay, so can we go through this and can we get a lightning round? Can I get a lightning round, please? Okay, so VP hopefuls. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. What say you, LZ?
I think she's a fantastic 2028 candidate. I don't think that she is perfect for this ticket right now because not only am I concerned about having two women on the ticket at a time of war and how people in the military may view that, but I'm also just thinking that she doesn't have the name recognition yet, and I would much rather she concentrate her efforts in Michigan to secure that blue wall than to split her focus and start campaigning.
Okay. Quickly, please, Stuart, what do you think?
I would pick Whitmer.
You would pick Whitmer?
Yeah. Which maybe shows why I'm not picking. But I think that the idea that if you're going to have history be made, really put it up there, it would be, I think, just such a stark contrast. So I like it. I think everything's risky, but if it was me and I was advising her, and Whitmer was interested, I would say yes.
Okay. And Roy Cooper, who is the Democratic governor of North Carolina. Quickly. Okay. You just say no because what? Too traditional?
What does he bring to the ticket? Maybe North Carolina, but all those other things that you need to check boxes, I don't think he does. And he's a nice man.
She can't do a Tim Kaine.
She
can't do a Tim Kaine.
No.
Yeah, no. And he can't because he's in the governor's race. I mean, no, I mean, yeah, I'm with LZ. I don't think that somebody should bring a state. And Kelly would, I agree.
Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro.
No.
I don't see why not. He would bring Pennsylvania. He seems to have a very good political organization.
What would that do for Israel Gaza?
Beats me. Depends if there's a Gaza deal. I don't know how to calculate that.
California Governor Gavin Newsom.
Hell no.
Well,
besides the state thing, why do you say hell no?
Images of homelessness, crime, taxes. There's way too many things to hit him over the head about, with the threat of, if he's in the White House, the rest of the country would turn to California. I think that's too easy.
Aren't you a resident? Aren't you a California resident?
That's why I'm speaking from authority and speaking from place.
You can always move to Wyoming, LZ.
Andy Beshear of Kentucky, the governor.
He doesn't bring Kentucky. He's not flipping the state. So what is he bringing to the ticket?
He's a good politician, but LZ's exactly right. You're not going to carry Kentucky. I don't see what it gets you.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker.
He's rich. That's
it.
That's about it. He's rich.
He doesn't strike me as a guy who's very comfortable not being at the top of a ticket.
Arizona Senator Mark Kelly.
The only sensible choice in my viewpoint, if you're looking at the Electoral College and you're trying to play the math game, and you also are trying to shore up areas where Vice President Harris may be a little bit short. And I think the military is a big part of that conversation. And no one, and I mean absolutely no one in the military, is going to question the credentials of Senator Mark Kelly.
I say
solid case.
Former mayor of New Orleans, Mitch Landrieu, would be my choice, but that's
hugely impressive individual. Yeah. Great political skills. I mean, he'd be a first-round draft pick. Whatever it is, he has it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Final words, LZ, before we get out of here. What do you think?
Congratulations to President Biden. I know that, as I wrote in the piece, I know this doesn't probably feel good. I know you probably feel like you have a lot more fight in you, but history is going to remember this as not just historic, but also patriotic. And if, this storybook ends the way that Aaron Sorkin is penning it, you will be certainly celebrated at the inauguration. So congratulations to President Biden, and let's see what happens with Vice President Harris.
Stuart Stevens?
I think Harris is going to be the next president of the United States. And I think it's going to change our politics and be a very positive thing.
I agree with you. I was going to ask you, that was my next question. Do you think the Democrats can win? And I actually think they can. I really do. I know.
I don't think it'll be close. I think she'll win by a larger margin than Biden did.
You do?
I agree with Stuart. There are a lot of people that just wanted someone other than Trump, and they didn't feel good about Biden because he didn't look like he was going to last long. I don't think those same sort of images or concerns are going to follow Ticket Harris. That's led by Harris and, hopefully Kelly.
I think we're all in agreement here. I really do think that this gives momentum to the Democrats. And I do believe that Donald Trump and his folks are really nervous and scared about this. And what was, I always thought that I wasn't sure it was when it was going to come. I always thought if it was going to come, that they would do it after the convention, because then Republicans would spend their entire convention of beating up on the wrong person. Do you know what I mean? And so they spent their entire convention.
The assassination attempt changed the math on that, Don.
Yeah. Go on.
I really do. I do believe the assassination attempt not just changed the math when it came to Biden's viability, but just what you're talking about, the timing of it all. You cannot allow the RNC to end, the Sunday shows be dominated by Trump, and then he's on the campaign trail, beginning to embellish a little bit about what transpired, that horrible day. I'm not trying to downplay the attempt in his life, but we've already seen him starting to embellish the circumstances surrounding it, and I can only see him doing that more. So now he has to refocus in on attacking President Harris, and it's a total sort of etch-a-sketch moment in terms of his approach to campaigning.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you both. It's been fascinating to watch, and I appreciate you guys getting on. Stuart, I'll see you soon. LZ, we'll get back to fighting over text. So I love you.
Sounds good.
And your column was fantastic, and you're right on as usual.
I love your writing.
Yeah,
thank
Stuart,
you.
Thank you. Stuart, you're the best, and thanks for being supportive of democracy, even though you helped to build that monster who currently
you don't have to
wants to be back in the.
No one
I'll see you guys soon.
No one bats 1,000.
You guys can click off. Thank you. And I'll talk to the subscribers a little bit. So thank you, LC. Thank you, Stuart. Subscribers, thank you so much. Lemon Heads or LemoNation, I appreciate you guys joining us this evening on our emergency broadcast here. I'm so happy that you joined us. And I hope you understand what I'm saying. I just want the person who can beat Donald Trump to win. Would it be great if it was Kamala Harris? Absolutely. Would it be historic? Absolutely. No matter who it is, I'm supporting it. Again, I'm not a Democrat, okay, by the way, and I'm not a Republican either. I'm an independent. So, but I believe in democracy, and I think that another Trump presidency would be horrific, detrimental, terrible, whatever adjective you could use to our country. So I think that this is something that's really good for the Democrats. I really do. I think that, as I've been saying, it gives momentum, it gives some verve, it gives something that's interesting. People will be paying attention to the convention. The media will be talking about it more, not just Donald Trump's antics. It takes the focus off of the assassination attempt. The bandage goes away. Oh my gosh, now they're going to focus on, wow, we have this woman and it's a DEI. You're going to hear the whole thing. It's a DEI pick. And who else are they going to pick? This is going to be the DEI ticket. They're going to come up with crazy rhetoric to try to distract you from what is real and to try to get the focus back on them. Do not fall for the ear pillow. We've gone from mind pillow to ear pillow. Do not fall for the ear pillow. Do not fall for the rhetoric. And as I always say, do not fall for the okie doke. Okay. Before you get out of here, we have a lot of people watching us tonight. Thousands and thousands of people watching us tonight. Make sure you hit the thumbs up before we get out of here. Make sure you subscribe. We are awfully, awfully close, really close to 200,000 subscribers. That would be fantastic if you guys could help us get to that. So support us. Thank you for supporting independent media, where we get to talk like this. I don't have to sit there and pretend like, oh, I don't have a horse in this race and I don't care who wins. I do care who wins because I care about democracy and I care about the bullies and I care about the racists taking over the country. I care about a woman's right to choose. I care about reproductive rights for women. I care about having a balanced Supreme Court. I care about democracy. So if anyone cares about that, then they're not going to lie to you and pretend that, I've got to, have this false sort of objectivity. Yeah, I'm objective. I'm objective for democracy. I believe in the truth. I believe in all of those things. And if there's anybody who's telling you that they are not concerned about what people are saying about Kamala Harris, what people who may vote for her, who may not, all of those things, if they're not telling you those things, if they are giving you a rosy picture, let me just tell you this, okay? This is what's been bothering me for a while. There are people who have been painting really, really rosy picture about Joe Biden and what was happening and about the administration and trying to pretend that if you are telling the truth, then somehow you're not on the side of the party or the folks who you want to win. And it's been really bothering me because every single headline is a positive headline for Joe Biden and for the administration. And they tried to get you to believe that Joe Biden and the campaign and the administration weren't where they were. And you guys got upset with me. But I stuck to my guns and I told you the truth. I told you exactly what was happening. If you want a place that you're going to go to and you're going to have your beliefs reinforced every single time, because that's what drives views, that's what drives clicks, that's what drives subscribers, then you're in the wrong place. I'm always going to tell you the truth. And I told you that it would be tough for Joe Biden to stay in this race. And you got mad. Oh my God, I support. Yeah, I support Joe Biden. I do. But I also support reality. And the reality was and is, here we are. The man backed out of the election. He would not do that if he were in a position to be able to fight and win. So if you, again, you want to be misled, you want a balm and a salve so you can feel good all the time, you're in the wrong place. If you want the truth so that you can be informed, especially when you go to the ballot box in November, you're in the right place. Okay? So don't fall for every single thing is about, oh my God, Donald Trump is crazy. Donald Trump is whatever. Donald Trump just lost. Donald Trump just had the worst day of his life. Donald Trump is, I'm not going to do that. Because there are things that you should know about even coming up. When Kamala Harris becomes officially the nominee, you're going to want to hear the truth about her and where she is in her campaign. And that is what we're going to do for you. I'm not just going to give you negative news about Donald Trump and positive news about Kamala Harris so that you can keep clicking on the channel and you can keep subscribing. And then you get all of a sudden, you're just like, all filled with this thing, oh, everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be great. And then come election day, boom, you're going to go, what happened? Don lied to me. Not going to do that. Okay. So as many of you know, I'm out of the country right now, and I am 7 hours ahead of you on Eastern time. So if you're in California, I'm 10 hours away from you, 10 hours ahead of you. And so it's really, really late here, but I decided to come on so that I could talk to you guys about this and give you an opportunity to be able to talk to each other. Okay. So have a great evening. Depending on the news, I will see you tomorrow on Monday. It's already Monday where I am. It's been Monday for a long time. It's 3:15 in the morning here. So anyways, thank you, LemoNation. Thank you, Lemonheads. Like and subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.